Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you might be listening to this. This is your boy Sudden Death from the Purple Rain Podcast YouTube channel, coming at you with another episode of Quiet Storm Sports. Shout out to everybody watching live right now. Shout out to the replay gang as well. We got a couple of things to get into on this beautiful, wonderful Friday evening, Valentine's Day evening. Hopefully, you guys got some good plans, some cool plans for tomorrow or today, whenever you might be listening or watching this. Again, my name is Sudden Death. You're listening to Quiet Storm Sports. All right, so like I said, welcome back. Welcome back yet again to another episode of Quiet Storm Sports on the Purple Rain Podcast YouTube channel. I am live right now, by the way. I'm live right now for those of you guys part of the replay gang. Shout out to you. We got a couple things just to touch on this Friday. It is also a member live call-in show. So if you are a member of this channel, all you have to do is go to our channel page underneath posts. There should be a post for members only with the call-in link so you can join me and say your piece about our Baltimore Ravens. Whatever you got. Right, whatever it is you want to say, you can go ahead and let me know in the member live call in. Now, we got a couple of things to touch on. Make sure you like the video, subscribe before we do. But there was a hiring today. And specifically, it was for a guy who we didn't Ravens fans didn't necessarily cherish a whole lot throughout his tenure as coordinator for the Ravens. And that guy is Zach Orr. And he recently got hired as the Seattle Seahawks, most recent Super Bowl champions. He got hired as their inside linebackers coach. And we're going to go ahead and get into that now. Without any further ado, let me go ahead and switch over here so we can take a look at what this entails, right? So as you guys can see right here on the screen, the Seahawks are to hire former Ravens defensive coordinator Zach Orr as their linebackers coach. And when I first heard this news, guys, I was kind of taken aback. I was like, wait a minute. This guy goes from being a defensive coordinator for the Ravens and basically gets demoted back down to inside linebackers coach. Now, I know that he's reuniting with Mike McDonald, who he was working underneath back in the 2022 and 2023 season when he was linebackers coach for the Ravens. But I'm going to read this article, and I think some things might surprise you. Something might surprise you. Let's go ahead and jump into it. It says earlier Friday, it was reported that the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks were set to add former Baltimore Ravens assistant coach Daniel Stern, who was looking for a new employer after the Ravens opted to move on from John Harbaugh after missing the playoffs. However, according to a report from Clarence Hill, Stern is not not the only former Ravens assistant set to join Mike McDonald's staff in Seattle. You see this tweet from Clarence Hill Jr. here. It says, per sources, former Ravens DC Zach Orr is headed to the Seahawks as an inside linebackers coach. Orr will be reunited with Mike McDonald, who preceded him as Ravens DC. He had an opportunity to take the same position in Dallas. So he could have been a Cowboy, right? As an inside linebackers coach. But he said, nah, I don't want to go down to Texas and play for America's team. I'd rather go coast to coast from Baltimore all the way over to Seattle and work with my guy, Mike McDonald, who just won a Super Bowl for the Seattle Seahawks. So I'm happy for him. I just want to start off by saying that. I mean, hats off to him. He did what he did what he did in Baltimore, right? He had 2 seasons to kind of work through it, and both seasons started off very, very shakily. And I think that that's the biggest reason why, he was not retained as a defensive coordinator and he had to be gutted from that staff, just like everybody else, right? But when you start off 2 seasons back to back as a bottom three defense in the league, doesn't look too hot. Does not look too hot on your resume. Now, if we keep reading here, it says, as Hill notes in the post, Zach Orr was the DC for the Ravens the past 2 seasons, a title he assumed when Mike McDonald left Baltimore to become the head coach of the Seahawks 2 years ago. Joining McDonald's staff as the inside linebackers coach makes perfect sense for Orr, as that was the role he occupied in 2022 and 2023 under McDonald. No word yet on what this means for Coach Olivadotti, who has been the Seahawks inside linebackers coach the past 2 years. In any case, field goals will work to keep readers up to date and yada, yada, yada on the Seahawks coaching staff. Now, it was also said, and it doesn't mention it in this article here, but it was also said that Zach Orr was also offered he was supposed to interview for the defensive coordinator job for the Las Vegas Raiders. So if he did not want to take a demotion, he didn't want to take a lateral move, get another shot at being a defensive coordinator, he could have done that, right? He could have interviewed for Las Vegas and potentially been their DC, but instead of doing that, he said, you know what? And this is what I kind of respect about Zach Orr. He said, I'm gonna be humble. I tried the whole DC thing. I could go right to another job trying out, being a DC again, but here's the thing. I'm not going to have anybody to hold my hand in Vegas. Vegas is already kind of a dumpster fire. That's why they have the number one overall pick. And I'd be on an island, right? Like everything would fall on me. At least in Baltimore, he had played for Baltimore. John Harbaugh had really kind of given him the nod to get that job. So he kind of had somebody looking over him, looking after him in a way. In Vegas, he'd be on an island. It's like, hey, Zach Orr, you're the DC. Make it happen for us. He might have only lasted 1 year as DC there. So I think that he's probably going to take a step back, reflect on his time in Baltimore, which he should. And like I said, this is why I respect it. He should take some time to reflect on his time in Baltimore as a first time DC, learn from his mistakes, and kind of work his way back up to being a defensive coordinator. I'm sure the past 2 years he was thinking, I'm looking for a head coaching job here soon. But he got knocked off the horse, but I got to give him props for hopping back on the horse and trying again. So shout out to Zach Orr. I can't really, I can't say nothing bad about him. He again, like you said, he did what he did here, but definitely got demoted. Definitely got demoted. Shout out to everybody in the live chat. I see Ashley in the live chat. I see Black Daniels in the live chat. Mike is in the live chat. Taurus is in the live chat. Neuropsycho is in the live chat. D Thoring, what's going on, man? Appreciate you for coming through. Mike is in the live chat. Zeke Kokage is in the live chat as well. Please make sure you guys like this video, guys. It's free. It only takes a second, and it helps us out so much here at PRP as we are quickly and closing in on 6,000 subscribers. If you are new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button. That helps us out way more than you can imagine. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all. But like Ashley says here, happy for Zach Orr. Happy for him, right? Happy for him. He wasn't fit to be a DC. Who did he develop? Not really anybody, being honest with you. Torres also said this is such a great time to be a Ravens fan. Hallelujah. It is. It is. It's a very peculiar time to be a Ravens fan because normally, we're dealing with the doom and gloom of, the off season and just getting bounced out of the playoffs and watching another team hoist the Lombardi and only having another year of a John Harbaugh led Ravens to look forward to in the next season. But no longer is that the case. So they gutted the entire coaching staff, including Zach Orr, but he has landed a job with the Seattle Seahawks, and I think he'll do well. He did well as an inside linebackers coach in his time in Baltimore, and I think the same thing will happen in Seattle as well. So shout out to him. Appreciate him for doing what he did. Again, it wasn't the best. It was kind of a bang up job, but wish him nothing but the best. Nothing but the best. All right. Let me see. Black Daniels giving a shout out to the hashtag replay gang. Of course, Black Daniels, appreciate that. Shout out to the whole replay gang. If you are watching the replay of this episode of Quiet Storm Sports, shout out to you. Like the video, subscribe if you are new. Tanja Bowman in the house says, hey, Sutton, what's going on, Tanja Bowman? Appreciate you coming through as well. And I see Glaucoma says, like the video so the kids can eat. That is so important, guys. Liking the video is so important, or the kids won't eat, unfortunately. So, and then Stretch says here, and I agree with him. What up, Stretch? Says Mike Mack is going to help Orr learn and grow. I would expect Zach Orr to stick around as inside linebackers coach for the Seattle Seahawks for at least 2 seasons. Right? And then he can come out on the other side of that. 38 years old? I think. How old is Zach Orr? Let me see. Zach Orr age. How old is Zach Orr? I want to know. Zach Orr is 33. Still extremely young, right? Super young, a 90s baby, just like me. So yeah, I think he should stay for another 2 years. And then at 35 years old, he can come out and he can be a DC again. He could potentially see a lot more success than he saw with the Ravens. So again, Wish him nothing but the best. Wish him nothing but the best. Now, don't want to spend too much time on that. Let's go ahead and move on here. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about Mike Green. There was an article put out earlier today by Kevin Eck on the Ravens website talking about how Mike Green could be the next edge rusher to thrive under Jesse Minter. As you all know, the Ravens pass rush was absolutely abysmal last year. I mean, we couldn't pressure uh, we couldn't pressure a preteen, honestly. And they fall pressure to peer pressure all the time. We could not pressure a preteen this past season. And Jesse Minter is the type of coach who I've always been saying, like, and this is common knowledge, right? He's been able to do more with less, personnel wise, right? The Ravens don't necessarily have a whole lot of juice in the pass rush department. I mean, you're looking at Mike Green, again, a young player. You're looking at Kyle Van Noy, who I don't expect to be back with the Ravens in 2026. I mean, he's a little bit just too over the hill, 34 going on 35, doesn't really show a whole lot of burst, seems to be taking some plays off, and we just don't need that from a rotational pass rusher, like Kyle Van Noy. We just don't need that. So I don't think he'll be back. But Tavius Robinson, he is a serviceable guy. I think more than serviceable. He's a jack of all trades, master of none, outside linebacker type, but I think there's room for development for guys like Tavius. There's room for development for guys like Mike Green. I don't know what we're going to do with Adisa Isaac. Maybe he does come back healthy and maybe we can develop him a little bit. I don't know. I don't think the Ravens will be able to keep Draymond Jones either. So that leaves the Ravens vulnerable in their pass rush. It leaves them very, very vulnerable. And I want to know exactly what Jesse Minter is going to be able to do to unlock Mike Green. Now, I'm on record saying Mike Green needs to get a little bit bigger. Right now, he's a little bit too light in the ass. I mean, you can see him going one on one. I can show you tape right now of Mike Green going one on one with guys on the outside and getting stonewalled by left tackles, right tackles, and all the like. Tackles who don't even have good pad level when they go to block him. They'll stand straight up and just put their arms out and just hold him in place. And he's running in place. Like big brother stopping little brother from like getting to him just by like putting his palm on his forehead and just watching him run into it, run in place. That's what it looked like with Mike Green last year. But with Jesse Minter and teaching him technique, that obviously Zach Orr and Dr. Rush or whoever else on that Ravens coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball was teaching him last year. If Jesse Minter can turn him up and teach him better technique, then hey, look, man, sky's the limit. But let's dive into this article here. It says bolstering the pass rush is at the top of the Ravens offseason priorities list, and reinforcements could come via the draft and free agency. Okay. I personally think, and let me just stop right there. I personally think that the Ravens should go out and pursue an edge rusher in the draft, whether that be the 14th pick or whether that be the second round pick, one of the two. I'm also on record saying I think they need to go out and buy somebody in the trenches, interior O line and interior D line. They need to purchase proven talent there. But let's keep going here. There's also the possibility that a player currently on the roster levels up. Pro Football Focus's Thomas Valentine identified 10 players who could flourish under their new head coaches, and second-year outside linebacker Mike Green was among them. Valentine believes Green can make strides both as an edge rusher and a run defender in head coach Jesse Minter's scheme based on Minter's 2 seasons as the LA Chargers DC. It says Minter's arrival could be Mike Green's 46.3 grade, 113th. Could be his gain. Yeah, those weren't good numbers. The 2025 second round pick struggled in his rookie season, but still tallied 34 pressures and 4 sacks off of the edge. His ability as a pass rusher is not in question, and that's true. It's not his ability. He's got the technique, right? He's got the skills to pay the bills there. He just doesn't quite have the size yet. But let's continue. Green's 34 pressures were 6th among rookie defenders, and his 21 stops were 5th. But there is room to improve, especially against the run. His 47.1 PFF run defense grade was second last on the defensive line. Yeah, he's got to be able to stop that run a little bit better. And like I said, I think that also comes with him beefing up a little bit, getting in the weight room. You know what I'm saying? He's got to get a couple extra reps in the weight room. It says the Chargers' 70.4 PFF run defense grade was 11th in 2025, and Minter helped his edge defenders do some strong production against both the pass and the run. Veteran Khalil Mack earned another strong grade against the run, while former Ravens edge rusher Odafe Owe had an 81 PFF pass rushing grade in 2025, which was the best of his career, right? And again, this was under Jesse Minter. Literally, the moment Odafe Owe went from being a Raven to a Charger, he immediately got better. And that is not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. That's coaching right there. And we now have that coach, right? Green could be the next edge rusher to thrive under Minter. And it says Green is not the only player who could benefit from playing under Minter. Said PFF's Bradley Locker said the defense as a whole is well positioned to improve after finishing 18th in scoring and 24th in yards. The team's new head coach has established his track record over the last 2 years as Chargers defensive coordinator, propelling the team to sit 6th in EPA per play and 4th in success rate in that span. Minter's best ability could be turning unheralded players into standouts, getting tremendous production out of names like Dante Jackson, Tier Tart, Poona Ford, and Elijah Molden. The Ravens will need to invest more in their defensive line. That's true, especially with the futures of Nnamdi Madubuike and Kyle Van Noy uncertain. And we'll talk about Madubuike in a second here. And the team's secondary also faces questions. But with Minter's arrival and the hire of Anthony Weaver as DC, Baltimore's defense should ascend in 2026. So let's see. Black Daniel says here in the chat, West Coast Owe needs to be studied. And you know what? I think the thing is, the studying, I mean, the studying has already been done. It was Jesse Minter. It was Minter. You know, he spent last year as DC for the LA Chargers. And if you watch some of the tape and you read through some of the Reddit forums and you listen to some of the players talk about what he did, he's highly regarded, highly touted as one of the most smartest defensive minds in the league right now. And he's a teacher's teacher, right? Like he knows how to teach the game, at least defensively, right? And that's something that you just really can't. You really can't be any more excited for what Jesse Minter is going to bring to the Ravens players that they already have, right? And that's why we're talking about a Mike Green, and we haven't even really touched on Tavius Robinson, but that's another guy who I think can largely be unlocked by a Jesse Minter, and I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it. Owe was like Judon; they were using them wrong here, exactly. And I mentioned that a lot of the Ravens and what they were teaching was gap discipline, you know, setting the edge and things like that. And Odafe Owe was great at that. But quite frankly, that's not what we brought him to Baltimore to do. You know, we brought him to Baltimore to rush the passer. The most valuable thing a defense can do is pressure the quarterback. Whether that's interior pressure, whether that's pressure off of the edge, if you can pressure the quarterback, that leads to sacks, that leads to turnovers, that leads to errant throws, that leads to quarterback second guessing. If you cannot get pressure on a quarterback, you're going to get games like you got in week 1 in 2025 against the Bills. That's what you're going to get. Point blank, period. You know what I mean? So I think that's just something that the Ravens need to really, really think about moving forward here. I do like the Ravens' chances, their defensive chances, right, to actually turn up and come back to prominence here. I do have somebody in the backstage here. I think that's got my guy Asmodeus. My guy Asmodeus is backstage. Let me go ahead and get right here. Let's see. I want to bring him up. I know what he's going to want to talk about. 1 second. Here we go. All right. Make sure this is connected. Get my guy in here. Move over here. Boom. All right. So let's go ahead and bring my guy Asmodeus up to the stage and see what he has got to say.
Hey, son, how
Asmodeus,
you
you
doing?
there?
Yep, I'm here.
Good, man. How are you?
Doing good.
All right. So, I mean, hey, look, you've been asking for this all week, man. I know you got some stuff about Trey Hendrickson. I know you want to bring him to Baltimore. How are you feeling, man?
I'm feeling pretty good. I would say my goal is to really figure out why people are not hot on him. I think that's the part that I would say that's the part that kind of really surprises me. There's a couple of reasons why I say that. Um, I would say the biggest thing I would see so far is people saying that he is frequently injured. He's really not. Last year was really the one year he's ever really faced adversity from being injured. And besides that, the rookie season he had when he was not even on the Bengals, he was in New Orleans. He was injured, and he wasn't even a starter at that point, so that didn't really matter. He's 30 with back problems. I mean, Micah Parsons is damn near 30, and I mentioned this prior. Micah Parsons, he has vertebrae discs that are fused together. He has a history of back problems. And he didn't even make it to the end of the season this year. But everybody wanted him in the beginning of it. So, if you were one of those people who was on the Micah Parsons train, I'm not sure why you would be on his train and not on Trey Hendrickson's. Personally.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned this earlier in the week. I think you were in the chat for. I mean, I definitely do think that Micah Parsons is just more of a freak athlete, just naturally, than Trey Hendrickson. I love what Hendrickson is able to do. I mean, he's a blue chip pass rusher, that's for sure. But the only thing that kind of worries me about him, is number one, again, how healthy can he stay, right? I get what you're saying. He's not the only one who's been banged up. He hasn't been necessarily injury riddled throughout his career, but you have to couple that also with the contract situation as well. The Ravens are going to have to pay him big, big money, and the Ravens are not just looking to contend. They're not looking to take part. They're looking to actually take over, right? And actually go to a Super Bowl. So is he going to be able to, if you give him a big contract, a massive contract, which he's going to demand, it's going to eat up a lot of cap space. Is he going to be able to play 16 games, 17 games, and plus playoffs, right? Make it all the way to the. Are we going to be able to get a solid return on investment? I just don't know how, how likely that is, right? So I would much rather go a little bit cheaper and younger at edge rusher. And I know you were in the chat the other night, and I'm going to mention this a little bit later on the show. I would rather us get a lot healthier and a lot stronger on the interior D line, because that would open up opportunities for the guys on the outside, as we saw back when Namdi Madubuike and Travis Jones were a dominant force in the middle. I mean, you had guys like Kyle Van Noy turning back the clocks just a year ago, getting 12 and a half sacks. Adafe Owe getting 10 plus sacks. I think that same thing can go for, a Mike Green. It can go for a Tavius Robinson. As long as you have the heart of that defense, again, aka the interior D linemen, if they're stepping up, I don't think you need to spend a boatload of money on the edge, right? That's why I'm also a big supporter of AJ Brown over a Max Crosby, right? I know Max Crosby, he's been a name that's been floated around a lot as well, but I'm much more heavy on getting skill position talent at wide receiver, as opposed to going ahead and spending a bunch of money on edge rusher. What do you say to that?
I would like AJ Brown for the one exception that we need to fix the line first, that O line. I don't care who we put in as a wide receiver. If Lamar doesn't have time to be able to throw the ball, nothing's going to happen. I mean, we saw everybody in the Ravens this past year take a massive dip because Lamar didn't have time and he was injured, so he wasn't even able to move like that. So, I mean, what Bateman went from like 750 to I think it was like a 500-yard drop. Um,
Yeah.
Same thing with all the none of the tight ends really showed out. No one who's really from the pass catching standpoint. If you don't have O line, it doesn't matter. I think you could, make this a hot take. I think you can have damn near Calvin Johnson if you don't have a fucking O line. Excuse my language. He's not going to be able to do anything either.
No, yeah, for sure, for sure. But like going back to the whole Trey Hendrickson thing, would you agree with my take that if the Ravens are able to bolster up the interior of that D line, we could see some production out of some younger and cheaper talent on the edges. What do you think about that?
I don't disagree with you, but the one thing that I would say is finding someone who's able to generate consistent defensive pass rush is exceptionally rare. You think finding it on the edge is rare? Interior is like that's a fucking unicorn. I mean, I was looking it up not a couple weeks ago, Matabike and everything, comparing him against like Chris Jones, and then you have the really top defensive line, and you just can't really find them like that. Do able to generate fuck up the middle? That's hard. I think you can find pass rushers a little bit easier.
But
Um,
see, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing is, Modis, remember the other day when we were talking, well, I was talking about John Franklin Myers. That's a guy that you can get from the Broncos who, from the interior, got 7.5 sacks and many more pressures than that this past season. He's not going to be that expensive. If you put him next to Travis Jones, all of a sudden you have guys, and Travis Jones had 5.5 sacks in his own regard last season. All of a sudden you have those two guys in the middle, you have an interior pass rush. And that's going to open up a lot of one-on-one assignments for guys like Tavius Robinson, Mike Green. And I think that the Ravens go out and they draft another edge rusher with the first or the second selection that they have. I think that's probably the better course of action because it kind of kills two birds with one stone, right? Because like what I'm saying is if the interior D line is forcing interior pressure, that's going to open up the guys on the outside without having to spend a bunch of money on the outside. See, that edge rusher position is a premium position, right? It's a premium position for a reason because you want somebody who can get home from the edge. But if you can get guys who are productive that are cheaper on those edges because of what you have on the interior of that D line, like I said, it kills two birds with one stone. So that's my line of thinking when it comes to the pass rush. I would rather not spend a whole bunch of money like you're going to have to do inevitably with a Trey Hendrickson who is 30 plus years old, who is dealing with some injuries. I would rather go ahead and get the guys on the inside who can rush the passer because that's going to help out everything else around them. Again, killing two birds with one stone.
yeah, and I mean, I don't hate the idea of John Pickens Myers. I would say the one thing that the one caveat that I'm not sure about, I mean, I'm sure with the Ravens things would be different, especially on the Jersey Mentor. But what I would say is, the whole entire unit for Denver was really, really good. You had Patrick Surtain on one side, and you had the can't recall the other guy who was a corner on the other side, and then you had Nick Benito. You had another pass rusher who's getting double digit sacks. I mean, you had a lot of people, a lot of pieces working. I mean, they're working in tandem and they're working functioning as a group as you should on the Broncos and whatnot. But I would say the thing about going back to a Trey Hendrickson, you're talking about some team that is not known for defense, and yet he had 17 and a half sacks in the past few years when he was healthy. So, I'm just thinking like maybe he will be expensive, but then at the same time, will he? Because he's again coming back from injury and he got injured on a 1 year prove it deal. So I'm just imagining he may be open to another 1 year prove it deal on a team that isn't ran like garbage. And around pieces where he's not going to be the only focal point where everyone's going to be targeting him. And I would say, with that, and he could stick it to the Bengals for on top of it. I mean, we all know how crappy that organization's ran. So I mean, I also compared it against like a contract like Khalil Mack, who he's estimated at 18. Trey's estimated at 25. I wouldn't be shocked if Trey would go for maybe not below 20, but maybe right at 20 with some potential incentives. I could see him doing that. And I think in that situation, that's not the most outrageous thing in the world, especially if if you got the Lamar extension done, and then obviously Linderbaum would be the second most important thing after that. I think that move makes sense in that standpoint, and I think the going back to Michael Parsons, someone corrected me about 26. Apologies about that, but I mean the one thing that I was also say is that it's not going to require trade capital, which I think is going to be a big deal for EDC. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, aside from the first round, you can't draft for not that he can't draft for shit, but he almost damn near can't draft for shit outside of the first round. So I
It's
mean,
true.
looking back at Michael Parsons' trade, it was a two firsts, and then they got a DL from that trade. I mean, if we went from Max Crosby, I love Max Crosby. If we somehow get him, I'll be jumping for joy and all that shit. But I could see him for shit. I could see him for two firsts and a second, this year. So it'll be first and second this year and the first of next year, would be what they would be asking for him. Plus, we would have to pay him, and he's getting paid $35 million right now. Um, just that for inflation, they're looking at a $40 million contract. So as much as I love it, I just don't see it as something that can actually happen.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the more you're talking, I do think that bringing in a Trey Hendrickson would be feasible. Now, you mentioned one thing that really piqued my interest. Would he be willing to take another 1 year prove it deal? I don't know, so to say, right? But the thing was with the Bengals, he was looking for security. He was looking for that long term deal, and he got hurt. When he took the 1 year prove it. So I just don't know if he would go out there and risk it again on another 1 year prove it deal, regardless of if he's with a contender or with a team who's not contending for anything. I think he's looking to get locked up for long term. He's 31 right now. He's not getting any younger. He just had back surgery. I think he's looking for that long term deal. Real quick, we do have a super chat donation for Mad Ross. Appreciate you dropping the two-piece in the chat. Says one step closer to no more Bateman and Marlowe. I mean, well, shoot. I mean, if the Ravens were to offload Bateman and Marlowe, that would probably free up some more cap space, and maybe it gives them a little bit more wiggle room to work towards another contract for maybe a potential Trey Hendrickson. Like we mentioned, Lamar Jackson extension is on the table as well. I think that they go ahead and they offload Kyle Van Noy too. You're right. I mean, listen, pass rush, edge rusher specifically, is going to be something that the Ravens definitely address, but I think they're going to go ahead and trust addressing that in the draft. And the reason why I say that, you mentioned that you don't really trust EDC to draft worth of shit, especially past the first round, which I agree with you. However, this is a new regime, and I think that he's going to take a lot of advice from Jesse Minter, who is a defensive minded head coach, right? He knows how to pick them, right? I think that Jesse Minter is going to have his hands all over this draft. It's not just going to be Eric DeCosta picking the guys that he likes. It's going to be a highly collaborative effort. And I think that they go for an edge rusher probably within their first three selections. And one of those guys is going to be able to well, I can't say dominate because we don't know yet, but I think one of those guys at least is going to be able to be at least serviceable or more than serviceable for our Ravens. But I like your argument for Trey Hendrickson. I mean, if they can make it happen, listen, I wouldn't be mad at it. Trust me, I would not be mad at it. I mean, I'm never going to be mad at having a blue chip pass rusher in the building, right? I just don't know if the Ravens can justify with themselves doing that, given his age, his injury history, his demand for a long term contract. He wants to get locked up for at least a couple years and get paid as one of the highest paid edge rushers in the league. So I just don't think our Ravens are going to go that route. I think they go cheaper at edge rusher, but again, I think you got to consider my interior D line proposition a little bit more, Asmodeus, because I think that that's probably the best course of action. Because, like I said before, it kills those two birds with one stone. If you get some really, really good interior pressure from your interior D line, like we already have Travis Jones, if you get a JFM, John Franklin Myers, that's going to help out everybody else on the outside. Not to mention Jesse Minter is going to be able to get more out of the guys we already have, just like he did with Adafe Owe, just like he did with the young guy Thule over in LA. I think that that's probably the best way to go. But thank you so much, Asmodeus. Appreciate that. You got anything else for me?
Yeah, I'll just say just a touch on the draft a little bit because I've been thinking about that a lot. S- so I think we have a better chance of being a fine interior defensive pass rush in the draft than I think we would be able to find a free agent market. And I only say that because the draft is actually pretty deep on interior defensive linemen this year. Everybody loves Peter Woods. I mean, there's another guy. I think his name is I think it's Kalen McDonald. Looks pretty good, and they got some. I know TTB Ravens is really high on Falk. They got a lot of folks who are potentially intriguing. I would say on the flip side, um, from a pass rushing standpoint, I think my realistic number one might be Messidor, but I'm just curious what everyone else's, or at least what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so I haven't done a deep dive on Mesidor yet. I do have to do that. I got to get into my see. Here's my thing, is Modius. You guys know how I am. I don't get big on the draft until free agency is like in the rearview mirror, pretty much, because what we get in the draft is going to depend on what we do in free agency, right? Let me see. Mad Rossa with another super chat donation says, with a $5 super chat donation, appreciate that, Mad Rossa says, I agree. Interior is a must. Edge is overrated. Miles 22 sacks and the team still stinks. I mean, yeah, you could say the same thing about Trey Hendrickson. Asmodeus was talking about that as well. And again, that's a big reason why I think you got to think back to the 2023 and 2024 season. The Ravens were first and second in sacks in those years because they had interior pressure. You know what I mean? So uh, you mentioned there's a lot of guys in the draft, Asmodeus, that you could potentially get at interior D line, but I think we got to go out and we got to get a proven guy. We got to get a proven guy to go next to Travis Jones, and I think having that veteran sort of prowess there in the middle of that defense will just open up everything else. I mean, you also talked about how that Broncos defense kind of worked in tandem with each other with Nick Benito, Pat Surtain, and all those boys. But everything is predicated off of what happens in the trenches. We know that. I mean, we went into the last season thinking that this was going to be the best secondary in the league with Nate Wiggins, Cheeto Awuzie, Marlon Humphrey, Kyle Hamilton, and the like, right? But even they struggled because down low, we weren't able to get any pressure at all. We weren't able to push the pocket at all. You know what I mean? Guys like Brent Urban, guys like John Jenkins, love them. I mean, they're vets, right? But they just get stood up. They're just rotational pieces who are just bodies on a lot of different plays, right? And you just can't have that. You have to be an interior force before anything, right? Much like your guards, your guard play on the offensive side of the football. If your guards aren't doing shit, then like we mentioned, guys like Bateman, they struggle. Guys like Zay Flowers, they're gonna struggle. Lamar Jackson, the quarterback, he's gonna struggle. I'm surprised Derrick Henry was able to do what he did behind that offensive line. But I think again, like we mentioned, the philosophy should be this. You got to keep the main thing. The game of football is played from the inside out, not the outside in, right? And I think that that's what we have to address first, whether it be in the draft or not. I'm going to mention not mention. I'm going to study the guys that you're mentioning here, and if you could, Asmodeus, if you could find some time, if you'd be so kind to DM me some of those names, right? So I can start doing a deep dive on them when I start doing my draft coverage. I'm not doing it yet because we still got free agency and all that good stuff, but I do need to start, taking a look at some of those guys as well. But yeah. Anything else you got for me, Asmodeus? I know you've been waiting.
I mean, those are the biggest things I wanted to touch base on. I'm not even necessarily arguing against what you're saying. I Last year I wanted shit, what was his name? I think his name was Derek Harmon. I wanted him over Starks anyway. So I mean, I'm not even against what you're saying. I guess maybe
Yeah.
the only thing that maybe the only thing I may be arguing, and I don't even know if that's an argument, would be the comparison of like the quality of free agents that are interior defensive linemen versus the potential, edge market. I think that I'm just comparing those two, and I'm just trying to put those puzzle pieces against what I know about the draft, and have try to get the best of on both worlds in that sense. But I don't disagree with anything he's saying.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think either way, the Ravens are set up. I mean, if Eric DaCosta is, you know, anywhere near as smart as we think he is, you know what I mean? I think he's got a lot of decisions and a lot of good choices, right? I mean, based off of what you're saying, there's a lot of guys in the draft that the Ravens could pursue. I'm talking about some guys in free agency that they could pursue. We're even talking about some guys like Trey Hendrickson, Max Crosby, and guys like that are long shots. But there are so many options. The Ravens have to come realistically, right? The Ravens have to come out of this offseason with no holes, right? I mean, there's no excuse. I think you would agree with that. There's no excuse for the Ravens to come out of this offseason with gaping holes on the D line in any capacity or on the O line. Is that right?
I would say having a team that has no holes is really fucking hard, but I would say the one area that we absolutely cannot have holes would be the O line and D line. I would say if EDC fails doing that again, year three, he's fired. I don't think that there's any chance that he'd be able to keep his job after that. EDC, I'm not EDC. Bashada even said it. He highlighted it. He made that a very, very, he emphasized the shit out of that point. He was on it for a couple minutes, so I know EDC knows he can't go cheap and expect Lamar to be able to bail out a shitty O line. He needs to actually get his act together and get his shit done. So I agree with that.
Yeah, for sure.
I just don't know if the best of the team. I think there's gonna be
Yeah.
holes, but
Well, yeah,
those
there's
can't
going to
be
be
it.
holes, but yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I think that's what I'm mainly talking about. Like on that offensive in the trenches, right? There shouldn't be a shadow of a doubt that the Ravens have, a solid offensive line and a solid defensive line going into the 2026-2027 season. There may be some holes at pass catcher, right? Some people may say, oh, we need to go out and get a receiver. Some people are even saying, hey, look, with the 14th pick, the Ravens need to get a wide receiver, a big body wide receiver, this and that. I'm not on that train because, like you mentioned, you could have Calvin
Mm-mm.
fucking Johnson, right? You could have Calvin Johnson. It does not matter, right? You have to have guys who can block up front for Lamar, or else he's just going to get killed and those guys aren't going to get the ball, which is going to lead to them not being happy ultimately. So there will be holes, but like we mentioned, offensive line and defensive line cannot be the ones. They cannot be the holes. So, but I appreciate you, Asmodeus. We will do more of these, of course, in the future. I know you've been wanting to come on sudden reactions as well. I'm still working on doing the call-ins for that. So I appreciate you for staying on me for that. And I promise you in the future we will do some call-ins for that show as well. Does that sound good, man?
Yeah, sounds good. One really quick final thing, and I'm just gonna leave it at that,
Yeah,
and
go
I'm gonna
ahead. Yeah, for sure,
probably
for
forget that
sure.
at that point. Um, I know everyone was talking about in the head coaching cycle. They're talking about the success of offensive coaches, head coach versus defensive head coach. I would say maybe a bigger indicator for me has been, I mean, to emphasize your point, actually the ability to get interior defensive pressure. It seems like every single time that the Super Bowl is won is, can you fuck up the quarterback and can you protect your quarterback? So I would just leave it at that. So I mean, I'm not disagreeing anything they're saying at all. I want that.
Yeah, I mean, like forward perception says here, Seahawks O and D line got them a chip. That's all it boils down to. We can talk until we're blue in the face about, what skill position player we need here and there, but it really just comes down to, do you have like the big ugly guys down low, right? Who are going to be able to protect and fuck up the other team's quarterback, exactly like you said. So I agree. I think we've come to a common ground there, as we normally do. As Modius, I appreciate you so much, man.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. You have a good one.
All right, man. You too. All right, that was my guy Asmodeus joining us. Live callers is our membership call-in show. So if you are a member of the channel, all you got to do is go to our channel page, and the post link or the call-in link should be on there. It's only available to see for members of the channel. Shout out to Asmodeus again. And Forward Perception here, speaking the truth, speaking the truth. Seahawks O and D line is what got them a chip. I mean, you look at last year, the Eagles' offensive line and their defensive line got them a chip. Every Super Bowl that Patrick Mahomes has lost, which has only been two out of the five that he's played in, both of those times that he lost, the defensive line was just killing his O line. You guys remember that Bucks game, right? Tom Brady's last Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes couldn't do anything. He was throwing passes sideways in the air because that D line was just way too much to handle, and that's what leads to championships ultimately, right? So hopefully the Ravens can get that squared away. We do have over 100 people watching live right now. Shout out to you guys. Appreciate y'all for coming through this episode of Quiet Storm Sports. This is our membership call-in show. I do have another segment I want to show you guys. I've been talking a lot about John Franklin Myers. I'm really falling in love with the prospect of bringing in a John Franklin Myers for 2 years, $7.9 million. You can get him for a steal. That's another thing, right? People undervalue, the league undervalues interior D linemen. Everybody's, oh, pass rusher, edge rusher, edge rusher, edge rusher. Those guys cost a fortune. They cost a fortune, right? And I think a big reason why you see guys like Nick Benito able to go off is because of guys like John Franklin Myers on the interior who are really, really causing havoc and forcing offensive lines to shrink inward, which opens up space on the edges for guys like Nick Benito to get home. And he had a great year. Nick Benito did. Shout out to him. Shout out to him. Let me see. Easy G3 in the house says, I don't know. Pat's defensive line was straight. Nothing was happening till the second half. Yeah, it was a stalemate. It was a stalemate. That's what it was. I mean, that game, that Super Bowl, it was kind of like an MMA fight, right? It was like an MMA fight where both fighters have the same style. They're both very defensive focused and they both have really good cardio, right? So they're gonna hang in there, they're gonna hang tough, and they're both really good at defending. So when you have a fight like that, when you have a matchup like that, they say styles make fights. When you have a matchup like that, it really comes down to who can go harder for longer, right? And obviously the Seahawks were able to go harder for longer. So yeah, yeah. That's what it boiled down to. That's my analogy for that. Asmodeus, my guy who was just in here chopping it up with me. Appreciate you. Dropping the two-piece in the chat. Thank you for making it rain here on Quiet Storm Sports. Says John Franklin Myers is also a very likely from Denver connection with the offensive coordinator, Declan Doyle. That is true. The Ravens get a lot of players from the Denver Broncos, believe it or not. They get a lot of guys from the Denver Broncos. They have over the years and guys who have really done well for the Ravens too. Speaking of John Franklin Myers, again, let me go ahead and bring us back over here to my media page because I want to talk about, I want to highlight John Franklin Myers and some of his tape here. I think you guys will be kind of impressed. I think you'll be a little bit shocked. I mean, again, 7.5 sacks rushing from the inside is not easy to do at all. So go ahead and take a look here at some of this guy's tape, and you let me know down below in the chat and in the comments whether or not you think that this guy would fit well as a Raven. He's rushing from the inside here. Rushing from the inside. He's very good on stunts. Very good at getting to the backfield, stopping the run, but also getting after the quarterback as well. Just take a look at some of these plays, man. 98 swim move right past this guy, right in the backfield immediately. He's huge as well. I can only imagine what he does aside from a Travis Jones. Pushing that pocket, forcing guys to the outside. I mean, he's going to force guys. The tandem of, and this is also, again, all assuming Nnamdi Madubuike is not coming back. All assuming Nnamdi Madubuike is not going to play football again. If the Ravens can go out and they can get a John Franklin Myers, right, and he can put him next to Travis Jones, they are going to run guys directly into Mike Green. They're going to run guys directly into Tavius Robinson. You know what I mean? And whoever else the Ravens draft or maybe acquire, right, in free agency, that's what you're going to see. But look at some of this tape here, man. Look at some of this tape. Oh my goodness, look at that bull right there. Right through his man. Right through his man. That was glorious. That was glorious. I might gotta run that one back. I might gotta run that one back. Hold on. I might gotta run that one back. It's the next one. Watch this. Watch this against the Chargers. I'm gonna pause it right here. Believe he's lined up on the left side of your screen right here. Lines up at a bunch of different techniques as well. Was he at like the 5 right here? Look at this. Watch this. Watch this. Watch how he just runs right through his guy, generating immediate. Excuse me. I have a date with the quarterback. I can only imagine. Movers of men. Brent Urban is not doing this. John Jenkins is not doing this. Eric DaCosta, if you can hear me, Eric, if you can hear me right now, please, please acquire this kid. Acquire this kid. I beg of you. Mike says he is strong. He's strong with a K. He's strong with a K. Oh my goodness, dude. And again, man, 7.5 sacks from the interior is not easy to do. It's just not. Chasing guys down from behind. And he's only 29. He's only 29. He is in the prime athletic shape of his life. He's got some great years ahead of him. So let me see. Flagship Fantasy says Sutton. Some edge guys in this class I like are Derek Moore, Malachi Lawrence, Zion Young. All these guys are day 2 dudes that the Ravens can target if they get a John Franklin Myers. I like that. I like that. Let me save that. Let me save that. Hold on. I got to start writing down some of these names you guys are saying. For now, I'm going to take a picture of your comment. Appreciate you, Flagship Fantasy. Asmodeus says, I'm sold. This is the move. However, can you get different tape than the Chargers? They were on 3rd string, left tackle, and right tackle. Yeah, this is against us right here. It's not really saying much. Our offensive line was terrible, right? But there's some other clips. There's other clips. Chiefs. Getting home. Cleaning guys up. Here's another one against the Chiefs as well. And again, like this guy is so versatile because you can line him up on the inside, you can damn near line him up on the outside. Oh gosh, there goes that bull again. Right through his man. Mike says, I like the way he sheds blocks in the run game. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm, mm. Let me stop. Let me stop. Ah, guys. So I think you get my point. I think you get my point. Um, as much as I would love to go out and get a highly touted edge rusher, whatever that might look like, whether that's a Trey Hendrickson, whether that is a potentially a Max Crosby, whether that's somebody else, a Rashawn Gary, some whoever else, right? I think that working with what we have, I don't think it's time to give up on Mike Green. I definitely don't think it's time to give up on Tavius Robinson for sure. And those guys, with the combination of Jesse Minter coaching them up and teaching them the right technique and putting them in the right positions, the combination of that and getting forces on the interior D line, I think sky's the limit. Sky's the limit for this defense. And what does that do? It's a domino effect. It all starts in the middle. It all starts in the middle of that defense. If the interior D linemen are causing havoc in the trenches, that's going to open up more opportunities for the edge rushers. If the edge rushers are causing havoc constantly in the backfield, that's going to open up more opportunities for the secondary, for the second level, right? Well, not the secondary. I mean, the linebackers are one thing. Roquan Smith is a guy who we're not really talking about. I know a lot of us are very, very low on Roquan Smith right now, but he's going to be a Raven this upcoming season, and he's another guy who I think that with Jesse Minter putting him in the right positions can turn the clocks back. All right. But my overall point is that it starts in the interior of the D line and everything else follows suit. The edge rushers are going to be able to get home more. The linebackers are going to have less to clean up, less shit to clean up, right? And the secondary, they're going to have better opportunities. Errant throws. You're going to see more turnovers. Everything is predicated. Again, guys, the philosophy is the game of football is played from the inside out, not the other way around. And we learn that every single Super Bowl. So if you don't take anything else from this episode of Quiet Storm Sports, please take that. Please take that. Okay. So, but listen, guys, I didn't mean to stay here too long today. I am going to go ahead and get out of here on this episode of the show. I know it's kind of a shorter episode, about an hour in, but I got to do some stuff. I got to do some planning for Valentine's Day. I got to do some planning and stuff, some last minute stuff. So, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Have a beautiful, wonderful, safe weekend. My name is Sutton Def. If this is your first time tuning in to the Purple Rain podcast, welcome in. Please be sure to like this video before you get out of here and subscribe to our channel as well. That helps us out so much here at PRP. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. And I will see you guys on Monday stream. Peace.